I should have a... Yep. Very good morning, very good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. And I'll pass my microphone to Mark, as usual. Mark, over to you, please.
Yes, good morning, everybody. Sorry I couldn't make the last few of these, but it's been a busy start to the year for us here at CSM. I'm sure it has for everybody on the call as well. Just by way of update, I spoke with Alpha Marine yesterday and chivied them along in finalizing the general principles or putting some meat on the bone of the general principles. And then I've liaised with Kuba as well as to whether he can take up the main running of this, because I simply, the delay in pushing this forward is all of my doing, in the sense that I'm not able to give it the time that I would have wanted. So I think Kuba's kindly agreed to hammer this out. Of course, I'll help as much as I can as well before we then put it back to XCOM. But Alpha Marine are putting the meat on the bone now, and we should get these delivered as quickly as possible. We're seeing, like most of you out there, we're seeing the impact of Omicron and more COVID cases on board our vessels. Huge amount of COVID cases, and the spread is completely different to previous variants. And we're also seeing people being infected time and time again. So that's something that is coming out more and more. And I wonder whether any of you are seeing the same thing. It's not something that's being written about, but we're hearing it more and more, that people, both in our professional work lives, but also in our social lives, are being infected again very quickly after the first infection. So this seems to be where you have so many variants now knocking around, whether it's the same variant reinfecting or whether it's different variants. But this is a factor that we're seeing, and quite how we cope with that, we shall see. But something to be aware of. Of course, being vaccinated helps, and the symptoms are all much less. But Omicron is certainly a challenge, and putting us all through our paces here at CSM. But I'm sure everyone is the same. That's all I've got. Thanks, Kuba.
Thank you, Mark. Alistair was probably saying, yeah, he sees the same. Alistair, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, Mark, we're seeing exactly the same. We're seeing spreads on board the ships. We're seeing different reactions from port authorities in different nationalities, some letting the vessel go, some requiring quarantine, some allowing crew changes in the vessel to sail, some allowing not. I would say it's the hardest period of COVID that we've seen so far, in respect to that there's no consistency across the globe, and many cases.
Fully agree.
Thank you for that. I'll take this on board. Tomorrow we've got our vaccination task force meeting, and I'll definitely ask around. Last time we've got meetings every week, and this has not been raised. So I wonder whether we are now seeing a spike, or this is just registering with us. I am obviously traveling, and I can see that countries are easing off, Denmark being first, and the UK now easing off the requirements and everything, saying that Omicron is with us indeed, but it is infectious, but less deadly. So I see a lot of European countries actually quite happy with Omicron as it stands, as far as I'm concerned. I will definitely be doing our stats again for February. That will be a vaccination, but I will also ask a question whether we are seeing more and more cases. It's early Feb, so I'm not rushing with asking those questions yet. I'll give ourselves another 10 days, and on the 19th, 20th, I'll go around and ask members for their statistics on vaccination, and then I will make sure that I'm also asking if we've got any problems with Omicron. Having said that, please report if you do have a particular issue with countries like we had recently with China again and again. And the problem here, let me report, that was terrible accident which happened. One of the seafarers died because China did not allow chief officer to go and read the draft mark. So he rigged the pilot ladder, and then he fell off to the jetty. And crew was not allowed to go and administer first aid. They waited for the ambulance to come, gentleman died and the body was delivered to the ship. Full stop. That's the world we are living in. Terrible, absolutely terrible. Obviously, all our associations are working together, making sure that the pressure is put on port authorities, making sure that our people can actually work in a humane environment. But it's terrible. I can see somebody's hand up. Alistair, go for it.
Yeah, I'm not wanting to take the call over with COVID, but you're absolutely right, Kuba. And one of the things is with these countries easing off, people are becoming complacent about it, and we've really got to turn the clock back 18 months and get the PPE, the separation, the interaction with port authorities. We've even got to revisit shore leave. We've got to review joining. So it really is turning the clock back, Kuba, I'm afraid, hopefully for a short period, but I think that's where we are.
And I couldn't agree more, because obviously seafarers are different here, because we are traveling, we are alien to locals, so they look at us differently, and that make our personal departments actually nightmare for all the crew changes and everything. Agree. But I hope you saw my message, kindly provided information from European Commission about Philippines easing off a bit. So I wonder whether we will start seeing ease off in Philippines as well, and that will affect our supply of seafarers. Moving on, I had a few questions actually from members asking whether we've got any committee or team looking into emission trading system in Europe, introduced by Europe. That people are telling me that as ship managers, we should not lose sight of it. A lot of our members are saying, oh, well, there's nothing we can do because owners are dealing with it. Is it really a case? Is it really true? I would like to have your opinion. And if there is something we should be doing as a ship managers, then I would like to hear your voice. What are we going to do about that? And who is happy to chip in? Or maybe you are already doing something and it's time to share. Over to anybody who would like to take note of what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think, Kuba, we, all of the managers, I'm sure, are working on this for the benefit of their client. So it's just a case of which of us wants to share what we're looking at and what we're doing and what needs to be done. Maybe V-Ships or Bernard Schulte or one of the others can volunteer, or we will. It doesn't matter.
Okay, then I'll take it and I'll send a message to all of us asking for assistance and help, and actually sharing of what we've got. So let's not reinvent the wheel. If you guys have a wheel, let's share it and see how we can make it a bigger wheel and make it, compliant, but also available for others, especially the smaller ones. Okay, very good, thank you. I had a very interesting presentation panel actually last Friday when we were talking about planned maintenance. I was requested by Riviera to actually act on behalf of our members, and I spoke with some of you regarding ship decks, obviously being one of them. And what I'm reaching out to you again, we made some polls, and according to those polls, majority of people don't know anything about the ship decks. So the shipping industry doesn't know about ship decks, therefore ship decks pickup is very, very little. We were also talking about new ideas, especially by Wärtsilä, putting forward to work with ship managers. And I've got a meeting scheduled with Wärtsilä this Friday, 2 days from now, seeing how we can actually work together as an association and what can be done when it comes to planned maintenance, maybe performance-based maintenance, and so on and so forth. I'll definitely report back to you once the meeting is over. And I think that's all from me now. Yeah, I'm just checking a mission I've done working for clients. Okay, very good. Are there any questions? Are there any issues members would like me to raise, or any sharing information with anybody? No. Therefore, we've got Jan Stappers with us today, who will be talking about the whistleblowing. Jan, could you make yourself available, please? Yeah, here we go.
Hello,
we tested your computer, so you should be able to share your presentation.
Yeah, I'll do so right away. Thank you very much for the opportunity to tell you something about a new development, European Union-wide, that is affecting a lot of organizations, and I expect a lot of you as well. It's the Whistleblower Protection Directive. And what is that? It's a new law that has been put in place by the European Commission. It affects around 300,000 legal entities across the EU. And the bottom line is it tries to strengthen the protection for whistleblowers. And what are whistleblowers? People who speak up about certain topics, certain types of wrongdoings within organizations. It's similar to the GDPR in a way that there are minimum standards provided by the directive. From a legal point of view, this is a little bit different set of rules because it's a directive, so it gives direction to all the member states. They each have to come up with their own transposition that transposes, that implements these minimum standards into national law. We see that the deadline for doing so was 17th of December last year. Most member states did not make it to that deadline, maybe because of COVID as well, maybe because they have other priorities, but we expect that this year, definitely in every member state, there will be whistleblower protection as part of the national law. And that means that legal entities operating in those jurisdictions must live up to those minimum standards. And what are the minimum standards? We don't have too much time for this, and I can talk for hours about it, but I will not. Very briefly, there are a couple of main elements. You must have a secure environment for people to report wrongdoing. And those people can report either to you, or what is new in this law, they can report directly to the authorities or even go to the press while being protected. And that is, of course, a risk for your reputation. And that's why it's so important to think about this topic, to actively facilitate whistleblowing. What are those main elements of the new law? Any processing of personal data, of course, has to be done in line with the GDPR. I'm sure that you know that law by now. The channels that you offer must be designed, established, and operated in a secure way. And what is a secure way? One that ensures the confidentiality of the whistleblower and other people mentioned in that report. What does this mean? It will be very difficult to say, well, but we already have an email address where you can report wrongdoing. We have a telephone number that you can call. By the way, it's only available between 9 and 3. Those kind of, let's say, alternative solutions are most likely not be in line with the new legislation. What must be offered? A way of reporting which can be in writing, it can be oral, so by telephone, by speaking with a trust person. So various channels are possible. What we see happening in practice that online channels are now very popular because they're cheap and very secure. They're easy to manage. Last 4 bullet points very quickly. You have to respond to whistleblowers, so there's certain feedback times, and the people who respond either within your organization or an external person who you hire to deal with whistleblowing matters must do that in an impartial way. Why is this in place? This is in place to protect whistleblowers from retaliation because, as you know, in most organizations, whistleblowers are at risk of being retaliated against, to lose their job, to lose their pleasant working environment. And then one of the elements is, of course, the GDPR compliance that I already mentioned. What does that mean? And why does it mean that to put a, I don't know, wooden box that I've seen sometimes, which is called then the box for anonymous whistleblowers to report. Why is that very difficult to live up to the GDPR elements requirements? Because all the processing of personal data must be done in line with the minimum standards that you see listed here. So you know now that this is something new. You have to do this. There will be fines for organizations that do not have whistleblowing systems in place. Personally, from the perspective of the organization, I think that a much bigger threat is the risk of reputation. We've seen so many cases already where whistleblowers speak up publicly while being protected, and the reputation of the organization is damaged. People don't want to do business with certain organizations anymore, and that can go very, very quickly and can be much more harming than the actual wrongdoing. So now you know there is a problem. We always try to give you a solution. That's what Mr. Szymański Kuba also asked me specifically. What are solutions? There is new guidance that was issued by the ISO, International Standardization Organization. Please remember that number 37002. There is a new guidance around whistleblowing management systems. How do you set those up? How do you manage reports? How do you triage reports? And how do you provide feedback to the organization so that you can improve as an organization? Because of course you want to be a long existing organization and improve yourself ongoingly. That new standard, it's not a standard, it's a guidance, has been available since July 2021. Some best practices, because I didn't introduce myself properly. My name is Jan, that you already know. I'm from the Netherlands and I'm a lawyer specialized in data protection. I'm working for a company called Navex. Navex is the world's largest provider of compliance solutions, mainly software solutions, and one of those solutions is called WhistleBee. Very creative name, of course, if you're active in the branch of whistleblowing solutions. WhistleBee is a software solution used by around 800 customers worldwide, and that's why we've been doing this for more than 10 years. We are serving customers like Maersk, for example, like Stena Line, various organizations active in your branch. We gathered a lot of experience in this field, and I wanted to just share 4 main of those elements with you. One, what is very important, don't just set up a whistleblowing channel. Try to establish a culture of trust that encourages whistleblowing, because otherwise it's just a paper tiger, like we say in Dutch. It's something that exists on paper and doesn't work in practice, and you're still risking that reputation damage. You're risking wrongdoing actually taking place in your organization undiscovered. Second bullet point, very important, implement whistleblowing systems and procedures, and not just any of them, some that work, appropriate one. Look at, get to know your organization. What type of people are working there? How do they communicate? How is their comfort with communication in general? This is a very important element, because just to say this is the whistleblowing channel, good luck with it, is most likely not going to work really well. Third element, case management. Involve, engage the whistleblower. Focus on the information that you received and not on the source. We see this as a first reaction of investigators very often. They hear something and they try to figure out, is this source reliable? The focus should be, is the information proper? Is there maybe indeed wrongdoing taking place, or are we at risk as an organization? That's a very important approach and change of direction in many organizations. And last point, of course, that's why the whole new legal framework exists across Europe. Prevent retaliation. If people are not comfortable with speaking up, 2 things can happen. Either perhaps one or both things. One is that the person does not speak up and the wrongdoing continues, or the risk of wrongdoing remains present, and the whistleblower thinks, you know what, I have no means of addressing this internally. Let's make this into a nice article in the press or share it through other media, or maybe directly go to an authority. And that can open the door to a lot of additional headaches for the organization. So prevent retaliation by creating, and that's actually again the first bullet point, a culture where speaking up, addressing wrongdoing is the normal thing to do. Very briefly about this, because this is not to give you a sales pitch. I already mentioned, of course, there are organizations that are going to refer to their email address, I don't know, whistleblower at, and then the organization domain, speak up, and then the organization's domain. Various organizations realize that this actually doesn't create a lot of input from whistleblowers. So how can legal tech help? And we're just one of the providers. We can help you to live up to the GDPR, secure service within the EU, to make sure that all the data security is at the highest level, that people can report in any language they want, whether written or through different means, that you can appoint people inside and outside the organization to deal with reports, and so on and so forth. That is what I wanted to show you regarding the presentation. And please, Kuba, if you could confirm that we still have a couple of minutes to show you a practical example of how such a solution could look like, then I'll do so right away. Yeah, thank you. I'll do so right away, because personally, I always like to show how things can look in practice, how they can work in practice. And I'm going to log in now to the Whistlebee solution, just that you see an example of how such a solution can be put in place, how it's being used by those 800 customers worldwide. Imagine that you have an online reporting channel, and I will not show that, but imagine there's an online environment where whistleblowers can see a questionnaire, information about the wrongdoing policy, whistleblowing policy, privacy policy, bottom line, where you as an organization can say, this is how we want to do business. And if you see that there's a risk of wrongdoing or an actual wrongdoing, this is how you can report it. We have a telephone number, we have an email address, and we have this fancy online reporting solution. And if you click on that link, you're redirected to a questionnaire which you can fill out as a whistleblower. And then you, as the customer, will receive a notification when a new report comes in. And by chance, we just received a new report. So let's open it. And we see here the report. And what does it say? On 3 ships of our fleet, the Santa Maria, the Nina, and the Pinta, some illegal goods are being transported. That's the entire message. So what is this about? About fraud. It happened in October, where on 3 vessels. Interesting, but you still don't have enough information. Maybe this is all in a language that you don't know. Then we have translation functionality. So even if this is written in Vietnamese, a language that I don't know at least, you can have this translated so that you can read in your own language what the whistleblower tries to communicate to you. And then you can send an answer. Then I'll send a very brief answer asking for more information. And this is all happening live. So I see that the message has been sent, but not read yet. That's how a dialogue can start. Then we have all kind of features that allow you to operate in line with the GDPR. I'll just show one of them, the case log. You can see that this user, Jan Stappers, that's me, read at 11:24, because that's the current time here in Holland, on the 9th of February, that report. So that's, you can always show who did what at what time. Then I can name cases. I can say that this is about fraud on vessels. So I can say that this is about fraud. I can label cases. I can assign a case to a specific team. Maybe I want to involve a forensics team, and I don't want them to read everything, just this one case. So that's possible. And with those labels, you can generate statistics. You can make it visible for the board, for stakeholders, for an authority, how your channel is being used, what kind of reports came in during a certain period of time. Basically visualize how this channel is being used, how quickly you resolved cases, what they were about. If a lot of cases are about a specific vessel, do an investigation on that specific vessel, speak with the crew, those kind of things. Kuba asked me to promise to keep this very brief, so that's what I will do. I'll just show you two more things. One, all of this is available in various languages. So now it's all in English. I can set that to Russian if I want, as an example. And I can, if one of the people in your organization is more comfortable in Russian, they can just use this environment in Russian. And same goes for the other main languages that you see listed here. Last thing, if you have various vessels or you have various daughter entities that each should have their own reporting channel, you can have them and access all of them with one click. You can hover over this partner, or actually I should say subsidiary overview, and you can just click on the channel that you want to access, see regarding which ship a report came in, which subsidiary, etc., etc. Last point, you can always add cases manually, because I'm sure that people will continue sending handwritten letters or typed messages, emails, etc., etc. You can at all times add information here manually. This is Whistlebee in a nutshell. This was the presentation that I had prepared for today. I went through it very fast, and I can imagine that you have questions. You can address them to Kuba Szymański or to me directly. We have all the resources available if you have questions about the directive or about our system. Thank you so much for your time.
Jan, not so quickly. First of all, could you have your last slide with your details, please? Populated when I am asking questions, because I'm receiving some questions here.
Yep.
First of all, is this system now, do you see the trend being worldwide, or is it just Europe? How about US? So 3 questions in 1 question.
Yep. So this is the sheet with the contact details. We see that in the US, it's already a very mature society, I would say, if you look at the topic of whistleblowing. Why is that? That has been driven by 2 elements, 2 drivers. One is the legal framework. All companies that are listed at stock exchanges in the US under the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, SOX, they needed to have whistleblowing systems already for more than a decade. The second driver is that in the US, they have a so-called sharing system. So whistleblowers who report on something that allows an authority to impose fines will get a stake of those fines. And various people have become multimillionaires just by blowing the whistle. So that's why in the US, there are different drivers to be whistleblowers. And that's why many companies already have systems there. In Europe, this is a emerging topic. By far, most companies do not have good whistleblowing policies in place. They never consider this so much. But what we see from studies, and not us, but anyone who can read can see this, academic studies are showing year in, year out that whistleblowers are the main source of information about wrongdoing. So that's why they should be protected. And the second thing that we're seeing is that organizations that are transparent, that allow to speak up, they are much more healthy. They're much healthier in the long term. Maybe they will not make that quick win, but year after year, they're just more robust because they can jump, act regarding potential wrongdoings because they're aware of it much sooner when there is a culture of transparency.
Thank you. Yeah, we are obviously aware of the whistleblowing in US as such. Some of our colleagues have been affected by it. But I just wanted to know, and you already answered this question, parallels between European system and American system. Thank you for that. I've got another question here. You mentioned, and you do have a maritime clients, and I just wonder, training, because this is all brand new for all of us. We need to do a lot of internal training for our people. we'll probably need somebody who will be a liaison officer between, if we were to delegate it to the third party, but we still need to have something inside. Do you know of any courses or anything? Thank you very much for ISO 37002, because that is a very good pointer and probably the best starting point for all of us. But do you think there are training courses available, or shall we think about something like that in InterManager for our members? Start with, very brief what it is and so on and so forth, and then move on to somebody who is actually doing something. And I can see Stuart. So Stuart, I see your hand. Let Jan answer my questions, and then we'll come back to you, yeah, Stuart, okay? Jan, go.
Yeah, I'll keep it brief so that there's room for more questions. Indeed, we see that there are a lot of people becoming active in this field. We are offering trainings ourselves, and I also see that legal experts, because this is very often connected to legal matters, law firms, for example, or compliance consultants are available to provide trainings. This is not a one-off thing because it's very often a culture change. So it's a repetitive exercise that has to be undertaken in organizations. This is not a requirement of the directive. So theoretically, if you have a secure system in place, you can check the box and you're compliant. But in practice, indeed, it's something that has to be repeated. People have to be educated again and again. And if you want, we have the contacts, also the external contacts. We know who the people are who really know this business.
Very good, Stuart, please.
Thank you, Cuba. And Jan, I have to say, Jan, that was a fabulously short but informative presentation. And I wish that more presentations were like that. So thank you very much. I have a question, really two questions. So one's related to Brexit. I work for a P&I club, and all thanks to Brexit, we all had to open up offices in Europe so that we could underwrite European business. And the UK club has an office in Rotterdam. And I just wonder, does Whistleblower, which looks like a fantastic sort of easy to use software, is that something that would satisfy the auditors currently if they went into an office or a shipping company or an insurance company, and a maritime insurance company, and the COO said, look, we've got this all set up, Whistleblower, and here's examples of how it works. Would that currently satisfy the regulation? And also, what sort of fines have you seen given out so far by the regulators in the EU?
Yeah, so to answer the first question, sorry, as a lawyer, I have to say it's not a regulation, it's a directive, and that's a big difference. But indeed, our system satisfies all the needs of the directive. The system also satisfies the transpositions that have been made available so far. Most member states did not transpose this into national law yet. By heart, there are 8 member states that did. They're relatively small countries: Malta, Cyprus, Portugal, Latvia, but Germany did not, France did not, the Netherlands did not. I'm sitting here in Rotterdam, for example, and we get this question all the time: what should we do? There's no transposition, but the deadline of the directive already passed. What should we do? And we are keeping our system up to date to live up to the most strict standards that can be applicable anywhere across Europe. To answer your second question, will an auditor, sorry, your second question was about penalties. As the directive has not been enforced, I mean, it has been enforced for 2 years, but not enforceable for any long period, there has been no fines whatsoever at this stage, because the member states had to transpose by the 17th of December. So it's very little time to already fine organizations who did not protect whistleblowers. What we do see is that the European Commission already started so-called infringement procedures against the member states that did not transpose in time. So these member states, if they continue like this, continue not having and not doing what the European Commission wants, they will be fined. And as the directive is not directly applicable if you read the law, it's a directive. But if you read the spirit of the law, now it becomes a little bit legal. There have been various court decisions that say, okay, it's not a regulation, so it's not directly applicable, but taking into account the spirit of the law, it's still directly applicable. What does this mean? If you operate in the Netherlands that did not transpose in time, and there is a whistleblower who says, my organization, my employer does not offer whistleblower protection, that person most likely will have a very strong case against you at the European courts. And what does that mean? Act now.
Okay.
Don't wait for the transpositions.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, Jan, thank you for that. I'm just conscious of people raising hands. There is no any further questions, and the questions I received I've already asked. Jan, thank you. That was really, really good, and I hope you know you're being recorded, so your business card will be actually available for everyone. But if anybody has any questions, and especially if you are sending this link to the video to your colleagues in the office and they do have a question, then by all means, please come back to me. I'll definitely have a word with our executive committee. How do we want to tackle it as far as InterManager is concerned, in a way of helping and assisting our members, thinking of maybe another seminar call or something to get our teeth into it from the maritime point of view, and so on. I do appreciate that some of our members are already your customer, and that's why I got your contact, because it was passed on to me. So I was not reinventing the wheel, searching the market. Jan was actually passed on to me by one of our members. Jan, thank you. Really
Thank you
appreciate
again.
it. By all means, stay with us. We might have a discussion now. The members, any comments, any suggestions, anything I need to take away from this meeting, please?
Kuba, I think we might consider the whole issue of whistleblowing in the context of our general principles as well. I mean, most of us have something very similar in our open reporting systems on board the vessels and in the offices. But sort of formalizing in a more formal structure perhaps wouldn't be a bad thing, and something that we can certainly consider more of. I think it's that was an excellent presentation, and certainly an important issue. I think it does go hand in hand as well, and we look quite closely at this when we looked at our own open reporting systems in place and the rigorousness of them, and whether they were still fit for purpose. It goes hand in hand with communication and identification with our crews and our workforce. You know, some companies think by having a whistleblowing policy or an open reporting that obviates the need to actually reach out and communicate with the crews and the people, you know, because you'll rely on the feedback through the whistleblower. So I think all these issues go hand in hand, and I think an effective whistleblowing policy as well as identification and communication is critical. Yeah, but I think we should look at that for our general principles.
Thank you for that, Mark. And I think my gut feeling is then I would like to email Stuart, actually. Stuart, I think we need to take it offline for a sec. And I would like to talk to you, because I wonder what P&I clubs are thinking about that. Because in the end of the day, I wonder whether third-party ship management would be, for example, covered by P&I club, should we not meet the requirements, and so on and so forth. What would that be, and so on. So let us talk outside and see whether, you know, what are the problems here or potential issues. And I'm pretty sure international group is already thinking of it. It must be on your radar screen. So if there is anything we can incorporate, that would be great.
Well, we ensure your legal liability, so legal liabilities, and if the ship, I don't think we're there yet. Actually, it's quite a long way ahead. But if a ship is fined in port by a port state or whatever, or detained because there's not this, I'm just looking well in advance here, and it's, you know, that's something that we would cover, I think, just generally, but only if the, you know, if you're in a port where some ports you go, sadly, I think you might have mentioned one in China where you'd get a fine, whatever your whistleblowing procedures were. So we don't just cover fines just across the board. We look at fines, and if it's seen that the member has a good process in place, and it was just because you just happened to be in a bad luck at, you know, being dealt with by overzealous officer in a port, we would cover that. But if we investigated it and it was worth investigating, and clearly the member does not have any sort of setup at all, and was just waiting for this fine to happen, we might take a dimmer view on it. But I don't think it would ever enter a particular area of the rules of the P&I Club. It would just be covered under fines, and we deal with them on a case-by-case basis. But certainly we can, I'm sure my colleagues at the other clubs are thinking about it, and I need to touch base with my guys in Rotterdam, because I don't know what their process is, and certainly we have to underwrite in Europe now, all our European business, and I'd be surprised if our COO doesn't know of this in Rotterdam. I'll speak with him now, actually, I think, at the end of the call.
Great stuff, great stuff, excellent. Okay, not seeing any more hands, I'm inclined to close the meeting then. Mark, anything from you as a final word?
No, thanks very much. Very informative. Thanks to Jan.
Very good, Jan. Thank you very much, and thank you, everybody. Let me upload the video. It will be available probably later on today, and I'll send a casual message to all of you. Thank you for attending, and I'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.